Hello and welcome to Creative Connections. Today's connection begins with Claude Monet standing in front of something very ordinary, a haystack. Then it moves to a cathedral facade, then to a winter walk under a vivid blue sky, then to a summer field where the tips of tall grasses seem to blush red against a wash of grey-green. At first these things might seem completely unrelated, a painting, a walk, a field, a bit of science about vision. But they're not unrelated at all. They're all part of the same story, how light changes colour and how the eye and brain turn that changing light into the world we think we see. Monet understood something that still feels extraordinary, that an object does not have one fixed appearance. Its colour changes with the light, with the atmosphere, with the season, with the time of day, and also with the colours around it. That's why he painted the same subjects over and over again. The haystacks, Rouen Cathedral, poplars, water lilies. He wasn't obsessing over haystacks as such. He was using them as a kind of anchor while light did its work.
So this is really about seeing, not just painting?
Yes, exactly. Monet is the doorway into it, but the real subject is seeing. Take the haystacks paintings. On the face of it, it sounds almost absurd. Monet painting the same haystack over and over again. But of course he wasn't really painting the haystack. He was painting what the light was doing to it.
So the haystack was almost just there to give the light something to land on?
Yes, that's a lovely way of putting it. It gave him a fixed shape while everything else kept changing. The light changed, the season changed, the atmosphere changed, the colour changed. So one haystack might look soft and pink in one painting, golden in another, violet in another, and then in the snow scenes you get those extraordinary cool blue shadows beside the warmth of the straw. And then with Rouen Cathedral he does something similar. He paints this huge, solid, ancient building, something that feels permanent. And yet under different light it almost seems to dissolve.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because a cathedral feels like the very definition of something fixed.
Yes, stone weight solidity. And yet Monet looks at it and says, in effect, no, look again, it's changing all the time. In one moment it glows, in another it cools. In another, it almost fades into the air around it. So what he's really painting is not the building itself, but the meeting between the building and the light. And that, for me, is where the connection begins. Because once you understand that, you begin to realise those effects are not trapped inside paintings. They're out there all around us.
Which is where your walk comes in.
Yes. I was out on a winter walk the other day and the sky was this clear, vivid, almost intense blue. And when I looked up through the bare branches of the trees, the branches seemed to take on this yellowy orange colour. Not bright orange, not obviously orange, just warmer than I knew they really were. More golden, more amber. And I found myself thinking, this is Monet.
Even though you weren't looking at a painting.
Exactly. Because the effect was the same sort of effect he was trying to capture. The branches weren't just brown branches. Their appearance was being changed by the colour around them. That blue sky was doing something. And then I remembered another moment from last summer, walking beside a grey-green grassy field with taller grass fronds rising through it. And some of those frond tips seemed almost red. Again, not a loud, obvious red, more a flush, a warmth, a hint of red appearing in amongst all that grey-green. And that too felt like one of those moments where the world suddenly shows you it's much stranger and much richer than you'd normally think.
So what actually is happening there? Because I think most people know the experience, but probably wouldn't know how to explain it.
No, and I'm glad you asked, because this is where it gets really interesting. Part of what's happening is out there in the world, in the light itself. And part of it is happening in us, in the eye and the brain. Let's start with Monet's blue shadows, because that's probably the clearest example. If you look at one of the haystack paintings in snow, the stack itself is warm, straw colours, yellow gold, touches of orange, pinkish warmth, and then the shadows on the snow beside it are blue or violet. Now that might look like artistic license, but shadows outdoors really often are cooler and bluer than we assume, especially on a clear day.
Because they're lit by the sky rather than the sun?
Yes, exactly. The sunlit areas are getting direct sunlight, which is relatively warm. The shadowed areas are getting much more of their light from the sky, and skylight is relatively blue. So Monet wasn't inventing blue shadows out of nowhere. He was noticing something real. But then there's another layer. The eye and brain also sharpen that contrast.
This is the bit I wanted you to explain more. When you say the eye and brain are involved, what does that actually mean?
It means we don't experience colour in an isolated mechanical way. The visual system is always comparing things. We have 3 types of cone cells in the retina, and the signals they produce are recombined and compared.
What do you mean by recombined and compared?
I mean, the brain doesn't just receive colour as separate bits of information and leave them there. It is constantly setting colours in relation to each other. So it's not just registering here is blue and here is yellow. It's setting colours against each other. Blue against yellow, red against green, light against dark. And because of that, one colour changes the way its neighbour feels. A warm colour can make a cool colour seem cooler. A cool colour can make a warm colour seem warmer.
So we don't simply receive colour, we experience relationships between colours.
Yes, exactly. That's why a blue shadow next to a warm haystack feels so vivid. The blue is made stronger by the warmth beside it, and the warmth is made stronger by the blue. Each one wakes the other up.
That's such a good phrase, wakes the other up.
Yes, that's how it feels to me. And once you understand that, the winter branches suddenly make more sense too. Against that vivid blue sky, the branches appeared warmer, more yellowy orange, more amber, because the strong blue around them was pushing the perception in the opposite direction. So again, it's not that the branches had magically changed colour. It's that colour is never just sitting there on its own. It's always being affected by context.
So really we should stop asking, wait, what colour is that thing? And start asking, what colour does it look in this moment, in this light, beside these other colours?
Yes, exactly. That is such a better question, because Monet understood that colour is not fixed. A haystack is not simply yellow. Snow is not simply white. A cathedral is not simply stone-coloured. A shadow is not simply grey. Those are labels, useful labels, but they're not the full experience.
And I suppose that's why the series matters so much. Because if colour keeps changing, one painting wouldn't be enough.
Yes, exactly. That's why he painted series. One haystack is not one haystack. It's a haystack in cold morning light, a haystack under snow, a haystack at sunset, a haystack against blue shadow. One cathedral is not one cathedral. It's a cathedral in haze, in sun, in cool light, in gold light, in fading light. And in the same way, one tree branch is not one tree branch. It's a branch against blue, a branch against cloud, a branch against evening, a branch after your eye has filled with sky.
That really does change the whole thing, because then Monet stops being a painter of objects and becomes almost a painter of moments.
Yes, or even more than moments, a painter of appearances, a painter of what things become under changing conditions. And for me, that's where it turns from being art history into something much more personal, because we've all had those moments. A wall that suddenly looks pink in evening light, a shadow on snow that looks blue, autumn leaves that seem brighter because of the dark water beneath them, grass tips that look almost red because of the green around them. Those are Monet moments too. In that sense, Monet's art is not remote from ordinary life at all. It is deeply democratic.
What do you mean by democratic?
I mean, it belongs to everyone. You don't need to know anything about Impressionism. You don't need to have been to Paris. You don't need to stand in a gallery and be told what to admire. You can experience exactly the kind of thing Monet was noticing just by going outside and paying attention. That, to me, is what makes it democratic. The effects are available to all of us.
So he wasn't painting some rarefied artist's world.
No, not at all. He was painting a world that is already there. He was just looking more closely than most people do, and perhaps helping the rest of us to look more closely too.
And the summer grass example works the same way?
Yes, I think so. Again, part of it may be physically present in the light and the plant itself. Dryness, angle, translucency, all sorts of things. But perception matters too. After taking in that broad wash of grey-green, the warmer notes at the tips of the fronds seemed stronger, redder, more distinct. So once again, it's colour in context. One colour being changed by the company it keeps.
Which is actually a very creative connections idea, isn't it?
It is. Things become themselves through relationship, and colours do that too. The blue of a shadow is more itself because of the warm haystack beside it. The warmth of the branches is more itself because of the blue sky behind it. The reddish tips of the grass appear because of the field of green around them. Nothing is entirely alone.
That's lovely. And it also makes those effects feel less like tricks.
Yes, exactly. I wouldn't want listeners to think this is all just illusion in the sense of something false. It isn't false. It's perception, and perception is part of reality. That matters. Because when we say, well, that's just what the eye and brain are doing, that can sound like we're dismissing it. But why dismiss it? The eye and brain are part of nature too. So if a branch appears golden against a blue sky, or a shadow appears blue on snow, that is still a real event. It's a real event of seeing.
And that may be what Monet understood so well.
Yes, he understood that these fleeting appearances are not trivial. They are worth attending to. They are worth painting. And maybe that's one of the reasons the paintings still move us. Because they remind us that the ordinary world is far less ordinary than we think, if we really look.
So what would you want people to do after listening to this?
Very simply, go for a walk and look. Look at shadows. Look at bare branches against the sky. Look at pale walls in evening light. Look at frosty ground. Look at grasses and hedgerows and seed heads and water. And ask yourself, is that colour really what I thought it was? Or is it becoming something else because of the light, the atmosphere and the colours around it?
And once you start doing that, I imagine it becomes hard to stop.
I think so. Because once you notice one of these moments, the world becomes more vivid. You realise you're surrounded by these quiet transformations all the time. And then Monet no longer feels like someone from a textbook. He feels like company on a walk.
That's a very good ending.
Then let's end there. So next time you're outside, look for one moment when one colour seems changed by the company it keeps. A blue shadow, a golden branch, a reddish frond in a green field. Because these effects are not only in Monet's paintings, they are in nature, and once you notice them, the world becomes a little more alive. Thank you for listening to Creative Connections. If you enjoy our work, please click like and subscribe because it helps us keep the channel going and produce better content.